Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Gaffer Gear. Today we're going to be looking at the Luxli Cello. So the Luxli Cello is a 10-inch LED. It is color tunable from 3000 degrees Kelvin right up to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. It has a HSI, hue, saturation and intensity color mode. It has a gels library of 150 built-in gels, as well as a special effects library with effects such as fire. The unit can be operated from a mobile phone. It has a Bluetooth app, which is free. We're also going to look at the Softbox that you can get for it. The Softbox is about $40 US. It's made of rubber and is collapsible for quick transport. Let's have a look. Now, a basic cello kit costs $330 US. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but by the time we get to the end of the review, I'm sure you're going to agree that for the amount of calibration that's in this unit, the amount of functionality that this thing can do, $330 is really, really cheap. Now, for your $330, you of course get the light, which is incredibly solidly built. You also get a quality long life battery. That'll run the light at full power for just a little bit over 1 hour. So this one gets me 1 hour and 2 minutes. So if you think 1 hour and 2 minutes isn't long or not a big battery life, bear in mind this is 24 watts. I think it's about 24 watts. So it's a very powerful light. You also get a metal ball mount, which you can use as a camera shoe or use as a stand mount adapter. The one thing I really do like about this unit compared to other LEDs of a similar size is that it actually has a proper battery lock on it. So you actually have to depress to get the battery off. There is no way that this battery is going to come off until you press the release. Now, if you're thinking, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, let's just do a comparison with other lights that are on the market. So this is a Nanguan, and bear in mind, this is an $80 battery. Okay, so if that was on cement, that would be wrecked. And this is a Cineroid. The next thing I like about these lights is the fact that they have a standard thread built into the unit. So that's not all that common in small LED fixtures. So in a lot of small LED fixtures, the stand mount or stand mount accessories are separate bits that have to be screwed in. So the problem with this is if you lose these bits, they are specific to the lights, and quite often they are not sold as spare parts. So if you lose them, you're stuffed. Whereas with the Luxli, if you lose the ball mount, because it's a standard industry thread, you can just buy another ball mount off eBay. Now, one of the other advantages of using a light that has a industry standard thread built into it is it gives you loads of simple rigging options. For example, you can just put in a spigot and hang this on a C-stand, no problem at all. It also gives you loads of other options such as articulated arms, nano clamps, and even mini tripods. All right, so let's have a look at the CCT mode. Now, what's impressive with the CCT mode is you can make adjustments in 50 degree Kelvin increments. Now, the range of the unit is 3000 degrees Kelvin all the way up to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. So here, slowly turning the knob, I can do 50 degree Kelvin increments. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the top of the screen there, you can see presets. So I'm about to come up to the fluorescent preset. As soon as I land on it, it lights up. I'll keep moving across, I'll get to daylight preset. As soon as I land on it, the picture of the sun will light up. Now, what's interesting here is this knob that I'm twisting. If I give it rapid twists, quick flicks, it'll jump from preset to preset. So let's go back to, say, fluorescent. Let's go back to tungsten, back up to fluorescent, daylight, overcast. So you can jump from preset to preset very, very quickly. Now, the other thing that's cool with this is your two most common presets that you're likely to use are tungsten and daylight. Now, if you press the button, it jumps between tungsten and daylight. The other thing I like is the dimmer knob, 1% increments as you would expect. Of course, it'll go all the way down to 1% with accurate color rendering. Now, what's really cool with this is, let's say you find a setting that you like, press the dimmer button down and it goes to 0, press it again and it goes back to what you had it last set at. So very, very, very clever system of operation. Okay, so let's have a look at the next mode of operation. To change the operating mode, you press the mode selector button on the bottom. The other button on the bottom is the on-off switch. So at the moment we're in CCT mode. We want to change to HSI mode. We just press the mode selector button and we're in HSI mode, hue, saturation and intensity. Now what's great about this unit is the display. You can clearly see what you're dialing in. Now, like all HSI modes, there's 360 colors. So basically it's going around the color wheel, all 360 degrees. So let's pick something very vibrant. Let's go a purpley blue. Okay. Now you can desaturate this light. Now, using the unit to desaturate it, you can only desaturate in 10% increments. And you do that by pressing the color button. So you just press it down, it goes down 10%, another 10%, another 10%, and so on. Now, you can adjust this thing in 2% increments using the phone app. We'll get into that later. Okay, so let's get into some real fun and start playing with the gels mode. And this is where this light is staggering, particularly for the price and for the size of the unit. Now it has 150 pre-programmed gels. Actually, I'm going to say it has 149 because gel number 150 is clear. Now what's interesting for you corporate video guys is gels number 1 and 2 are chroma key blue and chroma key green. Okay, so here's what's really funky about this unit. Let's have a scroll through the gels, get into some colors. I really like the way the menu is laid out. So you can see up the top, all of the gels are there in a color order. So it makes it very, very easy to find the gel that you want. Now, let's have a look at the color temperatures. At the moment, we're at 5,600 degrees Kelvin, and we're laying the gel on top of that. Now, my toggle switch that I'm scrolling through, if I press that down, it changes between presets. Now it's gone to 6,500 degrees Kelvin. I press it again, it'll go to 3,200 degree Kelvin preset. Press it again, it goes back to 5,600 degrees Kelvin preset. Now here's where this unit is remarkable. Let's go back to the CCT mode. So back to CCT mode, let's dial in a color temperature. Let's say something random, 5,100 degrees Kelvin. Now, as soon as I change modes, that 5,100 degrees Kelvin gets memorized. So let's go back to the gels mode. Okay, now 5,100 degrees Kelvin is now our base. So we can dial in any color temperature with 50 degree increment values, any color temperature between 3,000 and 10,000 degrees Kelvin and add a gel to it. That's pretty damn remarkable for the price of the unit. Now we're down to our last mode, and that is special effects mode. So I've gone a little bit overboard here and put both of these units into fire mode so you can see what they can do. The fire mode is actually quite convincing on these units. If you had two of the units together, you can create a very realistic fire effect. Okay, if you've just bought a cello and it doesn't have a special effects mode in it, you need to update the firmware because this function is very new. Okay, there are quite a few things in here. There's CCT chase, color chase, which is currently running on the background off the light over there. We have explosion, fire, which we'll talk about in a bit more depth. Fireworks, lightning, paparazzi, which is camera flashes, pulse, so the light pulses up and down. That could be handy if you're simulating, say, a neon sign. You've got siren, which is police lights, and we have strobe. Now, what's cool about the strobe feature on these lights is not only can it strobe daylight or white, it can strobe any color temperature and any color at all that you want to dial in. Now, unlike, say, an RE Skypanel, the operating system for this is really simple to use. You just use the top knob to scroll to the effect that you're interested in. When you get to it, you then press the bottom knob, which you can see has a play icon. So as soon as I press it, it starts playing the effect. I want to stop the effect from playing, I just press it again. It's now got a stop icon that now stops it from playing. Okay, let's scroll through to fire. Okay, so there's fire mode, just press the play button and the effect starts playing. If I want to stop it, I just press the stop button. Now here's where this unit gets really interesting. Now up on the top knob, the knob that we're using to scroll through the effects, you can see there's an arrow pointing towards fire. So if I press this button now, it now goes into the setup menu for the effect. So press that down, up come our setup options. So I've got two options here. I've got fire type and I've got the wind type, which is how much it flickers. So let's have a look at fire type. So I'll go to fire type. Now I use the bottom knob to select what type of fire it is. At the moment it's set to candle. I can then set it to campfire. I can set it to bonfire. Okay, let's go campfire. Okay, let's go back to the top knob, which selects what we're changing in the menu. Let's go to option 2, which is our wind type. So we can have no wind, we can have a breeze, we can have windy, and we can have, I think it's storm, storm's a little bit crazy. Okay, so we can go windy. So now all of that's stored in. We just press the button to go back out of the setup menu, and from here we can just pause and play or go to our next effect. All right, so let's have a look at the Softbox accessory, but before I talk too much about it, I'm going to explain why I think you should get it in the first place. Now, the cello is an open array LED formation. So as opposed to, say, something like this, which has a diffusion built into it, this unit, the LEDs work directly out to the subject matter. Now, the problem with that is you get multiple shadows off each LED. Now, the advantage to this system is if you need the firepower, because you're not going through a diffusion, the firepower is available. It's actually brighter than a diffused unit, but when you're working in close to your subject matter, you do get multiple shadows. Now, these shadows are exaggerated because, unfortunately, this unit is set up into strip arrangement as opposed to, say, something like a checkerboard arrangement. Now, at 3000 degrees Kelvin, which is the lowest Kelvin we can get to, only the white, warm white emitters are working, and unfortunately, because they're orientated into rows, we're now going to get strips of shadows. But again, only when we're working in close. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So this is called shadow echo. Dial the unit up a bit. You can see there multiple shadows around the subject. Now, you might not have noticed this in open array LEDs before because it's only a problem when you're working in close. If I back the unit off, the shadows will decrease. It'll eventually merge into one shadow. Okay, so that's why I'd recommend you get the Softbox. The Softbox will resolve this problem. Okay, so what makes this Softbox different to any other that's on the market? Well, it is made of rubber. So why on earth would you make a Softbox out of rubber? Well, here's why. You've got the Softbox, it's the perfect accessory for your light, and you want to use it all the time, but you don't want to take it on and off the light. Well, the problem is the Softbox makes the light much bigger and it's a problem to store. But not with this unit because it's made of rubber. It compresses down and now takes up next to no space. If you want to use it on the next job, all you got to do is grab the edges and pull it out. So if you want to keep the Softbox on the unit all the time because it's the perfect accessory for it, you can do that. Now, there are other things that I really like about the design of this unit. They've put a lot of thought into it. Number one, even though it's rubber, the insides are white, okay? So it increases the reflection onto your diffusion surface. The air vents, which are required when you compress it, it allows it to breathe. The air vents face away from what you're lighting. So I'm shooting in that direction, or I'm lighting in that direction, the air vents face this way, so there's no spill light on the set. Little other bits of engineering I like is there are ridges here. All the way through there's a ridge. That ridge perfectly lines up to the groove that's in the light. So you get a really, really snug fit. There's no spill light out of the back of this unit. Now please excuse the change in quality because I'm using my iPad to film this segment and I usually use my phone, but I need my phone to show the app. Now there are two versions of the app that are available. There's the iPhone version and the Android version. The iPhone version was the original version that came out. It's a pretty poor man's version. It doesn't have the gels library in it and you can't dial in color temperature. So the Android app is the better version. Okay, now I've fired this up. I've got two lights fired up. and 2 lights have come up on the app. It's identified them. So let's have a look at light number 1, figure out which one that is. Okay, that's this one over here. Whoops. Okay, that's light number 1. So light number 2 must be this one over here. Let's go to white mode. Let's put some, scroll through the gels. Yes, that's light number 2. Now, here's one of the problems with the app. If you shut the app down or you go out of Bluetooth range and then come back, sometimes, or most times, you'll find the lights aren't in the same order they used to be. Okay, so this is light number 1. Now, here we go, we've reversed. So this was light number 1, which used to be that one. Now it's the opposite side. So, of course, that means that light number 2 is this one, which is now on different settings. So that's one of the problems with the Bluetooth app. It's not consistent. Now, whilst the app is not dependable for trying to smart run multiple lights on set, I do use the app all of the time. Every now and then I'll have a light put in a position where I can't access it easily. Then I'll use the app to run that one light. Now, in that scenario, the app is very, very dependable. Now, if I'm using a light in a confined space and I can't get to the controls, that's where I will also use the app. The app is very dependable when you're using one light and one light by itself, but if you're trying to run multiple lights, it just becomes a confusing mess. Now, what a lot of you guys are going to want to know is how bright is this unit. Now, normally I take my readings at 3 meters, but in this shootout and in this comparison, I'm doing the readings at 2 meters. Now, I'll just very quickly explain why. The Luxli has lenses over all of the LED arrays. Those lenses magnify the light and, of course, give it a better throw over a long distance. Now, the problem with that is, well, there's no problem with it, but it gives unrealistic expectations if I do measurements at 3 meters. And here's why. At 3 meters, these lenses really come into play. So at 3 meters, this unit was coming in at 2¼ times brighter than the Cineroid and coming in at 6 times brighter than the Aperture AL-M9. Now, I can tell you from my experience using these on set, because I am a professional gaffer, I own this equipment and I do use it, you're not going to be using small lights like this to light a wall, say 3, 5 or 10 meters away. You're going to be using these in a more confined space. Now, in the more confined space, that changes the results dramatically. So I'm going to do the review from a 2 meter range because that gives me results that actually match my expectations from using it on set. So here are the results at 2 meters. The Luxli Cello came in at 350 lux. The Cineroid L10C came in at 226 lux, which would make the Luxli 55% brighter. And the Aperture AL-M9 came in at 157 lux, which would make the Luxli about 3 times brighter. Now, all of these measurements were taken with no diffusion on the lights. So anybody that owns a Cineroid knows how intensely bright these are. So that got me wondering, how does the Luxli Cello with the softbox on compare to a diffused 50 watt LED 1x1 panel? Now, in all fairness to the 1x1, it clearly has a better quality, higher density diffuser. That, of course, will affect the result. I was quite surprised to find that the Luxli Cello came in at 80% the brightness of the 1x1 panel. Now, let's get into the technical part of the review and talk about the CCT mode first. Now, I got my results by taking color spectrometer readings at 100° Kelvin increments across the entire range of the lights. So let's start off by talking about how accurately these units dial in a color temperature. Now, in your common usage range, which is 3,200° Kelvin up to 5,600° Kelvin, these dial in a color temperature with an accuracy of 35° Kelvin. Now, over the entire range of the unit, the accuracy drops to 51° Kelvin. Okay, so let's talk about how pure the white is that these things generate. Across the entire range of the unit from 3,000 to 10,000° Kelvin, these units require absolutely no gel correction. Now, when it comes to accurately measuring the purity of white, the other test that we use is DUV. DUV measures in increments how far off pure white the unit is. Now, to give you some ideas of scale, a typical bicolor light, that's a light that uses warm white and cool white emitters only, will have a DUV score of about 30 to 60 increments. Now, the closer you get to zero, the better the light is. So how accurate are these units? Well, across the entire operating range of the unit, these units have a DUV variation of only 6 increments. Now, to help you get some perspective on that, if you tried to color correct that, the lightest color correction gel you can get, which is a 1/8 correction, would be 4 to 5 times too much. Now, to give you a graphical representation of just how accurate these lights are, the line running through the graphic here represents pure white. The crosshairs represent where this thing was on the test. Now, I've lost my notes for this, but I'm pretty sure this was taken at 3000 degrees Kelvin, judging by the XY coordinate values. As you can see when we zoom in, the light is very, very close to pure white. Now, most manufacturers would be over the moon if they made a light that was this close to pure white. However, the reason that I took this screen grab was to show one of the worst readings that this unit has. At daylight, the unit is way more accurate. When you zoom in, you can see just how ridiculously close these lights are to pure white. Okay, now let's talk about color rendition. First, we'll talk about TLCI scores. Now, these are the results over the entire range of the unit. That's 7000 degrees Kelvin of operating range. The lowest TLCI score I came across was 93.8. The highest TLCI score I came across was 98.5. The overall average right across the operating range of these lights was 96.9. Now let's have a look at color vector testing. This graphic is typical of the warm whites. This was taken at 3500 degrees Kelvin. If you're not sure how to read these, the black line is a reference indicator and the red line is what the light actually tested at. This graphic here is typical of daylight. Now, over the common usage color range, 3200 degrees Kelvin to 5600 degrees Kelvin, the lowest score I came across was 93.3 for color rendering. The highest score I came across for color rendering was 95.2, and the overall average was 94.5. However, when testing the unit above 7500 degrees Kelvin, the units no longer score in the 90s, which reduces the overall average to 91%. Now we're going to have a look at the color spectrum of the color emitters only. So this is an overlap of the red, green, and blue color emitters. Now, as you can see, there is a big trough between green and red. So this means that these lights won't be able to produce a really vibrant yellow. Now, I'm not talking about color rendering with white light, I'm talking about effects color generation. So if you keep an eye on the wall behind me, you will not see any really deep, rich yellows appear. Now, by deep, rich yellow, I mean like the color of a lemon skin. Now, if you have a look at the graphic, you can also see that there is not much happening at the top end. So you won't see any really dark browns, any really vibrant browns like, say, the color of instant coffee. You will not see any of that appear on the wall behind me. Now, this isn't so much a criticism of the lights. This is something that I will be putting in my testing from here on out with colored lights, because this will change, this will get better over the next couple of years. Now, if you're thinking, well, of course it's not going to render colors all that well, it's only a $330 light. It's rendering colors as accurately as a Skypanel does. I've tested these units up against my Skypanels on set, and when you dial in a color temperature and add a gel, it matches the Skypanel. So if you're going to try and criticize these units and say that they can't generate those colors because they're cheap, the top of the range RGB lights such as Skypanels and Geminis and the KinoFlow Selects also can't generate these colors. Now let's have a quick technical chat about the gels mode, because something a lot of new players to this industry don't understand is that you can have a CCT, a color temperature that you've dialed into the units. You can then combine that with a gel, and the combination of the two can push the light outside of its specifications. So to give you an example, this manufacturer's specifications on the light, they claim are 3000 degrees Kelvin to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. So what happens if you select 3000 degrees Kelvin as your CCT and then add a double CTO gel? The result of me dialing that color temperature in and then putting those CTO gels on was I got a color temperature reading of 1773 degrees Kelvin, which is well below the tolerances of the light, which is 3000 degrees Kelvin. But of course, nowhere near what the correct result should have actually been. Now, the results of pushing the lights outside of specifications is that the color rendering just gets messy. So this graphic is a color vector analysis of what happened when I did that. The black lines represent where the color rendering should have been, and the red lines represent where the color rendering of the light actually sits. So what you've got to be aware of is if you dial in a color temperature and then dial in a gel and the combination exceeds the limitations of the lights, you will not get an accurate color reading and your color rendition will suffer. Okay, so that's the Luxli Cello, and I think you would have to agree, it has got to be the most feature-packed little LED on the market, and its technical stats are amazing. Now, if you're looking to buy one of these, at the moment you can only get it through B&H. Now, if you're an Australian and you've never dealt with B&H, who are in New York in the USA, let me reassure you, it's going to be one of the best customer experiences you've ever had. This unit will be on your doorstep in about 5 days if it's in stock. Now, if you do buy the unit, because it's being distributed by one company globally, you of course don't get a power supply with Aussie connectors. You don't get a power supply at all with the unit. Now, the power supplies are really cheap to buy online. Now, here's the one problem you're going to probably come across is you're going to do the maths and go, this is 24 watts, 24 divided by 12. I only need a 2 amp power supply. Now, if you're running the light at full power, you are going to be pushing this unit and you are going to smell it start to burn. So my advice is buy the 3 amp power supply and you won't have any problems at all. I'm Andrew Locke. See you on the next episode of Gaffer Gear if I don't see you on set first.